Orange, the President's Advisor for Sustainable Development. Participating in a UN-advocated planning process would likely bring out many who would actively work to defeat any elected official who promulgated local Agenda 21. So we call our process something else, like comprehensive planning, growth management, or smart growth. This is President Clinton's Council on Sustainability. There you go. With smoking gun number one. What it is conceptually, I like these pictures. It's a massive green Trojan horse. It's marketed as environmentalism, and I like to say, maybe this is a little bit extreme, but I'm going to say it. The environmentalists, who I actually respect, have become the useful idiots of a Marxist sustainability movement. They don't realize it. They don't realize it.
Didn't the environmental movement spring from the old eugenics movement of the 20s and ended in Nazi Germany?
I haven't heard that before, so I don't know. I mean, there's certainly things in here that look like that, but I haven't heard that, so I don't know. So anyway, when you look inside the belly of this green Trojan horse, you see all kinds of policies being promulgated that are very red. Free market manipulation through grants, unsustainable energy initiatives. How much is a megawatt hour of coal-fired power fossil fuel? Can anyone tell me what a megawatt hour of fossil fuel electricity costs? 6 cents per kilowatt. A megawatt would be $58. Yeah, $58 per megawatt hour. Anybody want to guess what a megawatt of land-based wind power costs right now? About $172 a megawatt hour. So when the lefties come to me and they tell me we should be implementing wind power, I say, well, go sign up for it. Go ahead, sign up for it. Instead of paying $300 a month for your electric, you'll pay $900 a month. Put your money where your mouth is. Government control of land, labor, and capital. We'll see some more of that in a minute. Group rights trump individual rights. Very, very important. Group rights trump individual rights. When I'm stopped by people who say they disagree with me, they say, Commissioner, I disagree with you. We should have done that. We should have taken that land. We should have done this or that. And I go, well, why? They say, well, because the good of the many outweighs the good of the few. I hear it all the time. Spock said it on Star Trek, remember? It makes sense, doesn't it? But it doesn't make sense. It's a formula for tyranny, and I'm going to take a detour from to talk about that. Here's what I say. When people say to me the good of the many outweighs the good of the few, I have a very simple response to all of them. I say, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Because you only have 3 people in your family. I know an unemployed mother over here who's on drugs with 6 children. If the good of the many outweighs the good of the few, I'm going to take your house and give it to her. I mean, isn't that the natural conclusion? The good of the many outweighs the good of the few? Now, there's a story out, a short story by a woman named Ursula Le Guin, called Those Who Walk from the Amelis. Did I pronounce that correctly? Yeah. From Walk from the Amelis. And what this is a little story that demonstrates the tyranny of this philosophy, because the good of the many is a Marxist philosophy. And in this short story, this little mythical town is allowed to live in perfect utopia under one condition. They must eternally keep an innocent young child imprisoned in a dark cave. In a dark cave. As long as this one child is imprisoned in a dark cave, the town lives in utopia. And they do it. Why do they do it? Because the good of the many outweighs the good of the few. And finally, people of the town realize the inherent corruption, the immorality of that, and they start walking away from the town because they realize you cannot run a society with the ethical premise that the good of the many outweighs the good of the few. In fact, our forefathers hated democracy, right? That's why they created the concept of a republic and unalienable rights, because they feared the hyper-democratic processes would result in the good of the many taking away the good of the few. And all you end up with is hyper-democratic tyranny, and pretty soon the minority has no rights left. Which is exactly what happens in the sustainability movement under their consensus meetings. Get 100 people in a room like this, and we all have a good talk. And shouldn't we take Farmer Joe's land over there and convert that to a green buffer? Yeah, we all agree on it. Yeah, we got a consensus. Everybody testifies we should do it. Planning and Zoning Commission says let's downzone him to nothing, and it's done. That's not America. But it's happening every day in the United States. Okay. So the problem is that Agenda 21's manifesto is incompatible with our unalienable constitutional rights and values. This is the quote that I just added to the slide today. At the University of Arkansas School of Law, a short time ago, a publication came out by a professor, Does Sustainability Require a New Theory of Property Rights? It's a very balanced article. I respect what this professor said. He argues both sides of it. I haven't read the whole thing, but I've skimmed it. But basically, toward the end, where the conclusion is, he says, does sustainability challenge the U.S. property rights regime? The answer is yes. Does it challenge our traditional conventions of property rights? Yes. And the critical question is whether U.S. sustainability advocates can muster the theoretical support they need to achieve their social justice objectives. And social justice is just a code word for redistribution of wealth. You'll see more about that in a minute. I'm going to not go through this whole thing because it'll take up too much time, but I did create a matrix showing the difference between what I call the constitutional paradigm versus the sustainability or Agenda 21 paradigm. The greatest concern of our forefathers was protection of individual rights, freedom from tyranny, right? The greatest concern of Agenda 21 is global warming and social equity. Strategic vision, I would argue, is to protect life, liberty, and property. A theme runs throughout the Constitution Declaration. Under Agenda 21, it is now environment, economy, and promoting social equity. That's a fact. I get calls from all over the country, and when I get calls from all over the country and I say to them, what's going on? My master plan has it, the 3 E's. Those are the genes that mark the infection. The 3 E's, environment, economy, and equity. Those are the genes. Sometimes they'll show up as social justice. They're getting smart now. They know that I've been after them. They're starting to disguise it now, and they're just calling it social. They're taking the word equity out, but we all know what it means. It means social equity. Role of government, our forefathers thought government's job was to protect your natural God-given rights. Under sustainability agenda, government acts as God. It decides what rights you will have or not have. America's middle class is a source of opportunity and prosperity. Under the constitutional paradigm, under Agenda 21, it is unsustainable. I underlined the UN so you can remember where it comes from. Same thing with the middle class suburbia, unsustainable. Meat-based diets. Cattle grazing is now what? Sustainable. Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, let me keep going. Back there. Under our Constitution, rural land, farmers and ranchers have been our custodians for hundreds of years. I'm a long-distance motorcyclist. I go all over North America. When I go out to Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, I see bumper stickers that say, Farmers and Ranchers, America's First Preservationists. Under Agenda 21, the goal is to rewild 50% of America. How many know what that means? It means push human settlements off huge sections of land and reintroduce wildlife and make that land totally off limits. And some of us do have a theory that the Missouri flooding was a manifestation of that. Because we went into the spring thaw with those locks almost full, and there were reasons to explain why they did that. I don't want to overstate the case, but there was an argument to be made that those locks should have been the lower levels and it would not have resulted in the flooding it had. There were 6 dams and reservoirs that were pretty close to full.
Aren't the BLM and Forest Service doing that by locking
Army
out?
Corps of Engineers were operating something called the Master Water Control Plan. And there are people that would argue that the Master Water Control Plan has been infected by environmentalists that have this rewilding wildlands mentality. But that's just a theory. I can't prove that right now.
But they have locked out millions of acres in the Rocky Mountain states.
Yes, well, Obama's been locking away millions. And
Now that's going on right now. I mean, that's happening.
225 million acres. Before. Excuse me?
Clinton did it before him with the Grand Escalante and all that.
People say to me, yeah, Rich, but despite the bad things, there are a lot of good things from sustainability, right? And here is my smart aleck remark. I say there are orchestras under the Third Reich that play beautiful music, but it doesn't change the nature of the beast, does it?
Well said.
This is President Clinton's counsel that helped us adopt Agenda 21. That's why this group adopted Agenda 21 officially. That's my punchline. Here are the whack jobs that are on this thing. President of World Resources, Zero Population, Sierra Club, Nature Conservancy, World Conservation Unit. The IUCN is a really bad organization. This is International Union for Conservation of Nature. With this group, this is a UN group, and people like Dr. Michael Kaufman would tell you, this group blames the great religions of the world, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They blame them for all the ills of the earth, and they actually embrace a form of eco-spiritualism, which is a form of pantheism. And it was actually, I listened to a lecture at UCLA where I spoke 2 weeks ago, and Dr. Kaufman was saying that this is actually a strong religious component behind this. And they're looking at the possibility of mounting First Amendment challenges to sustainability because it is based on worship of the earth, pantheism, and it rejects Judeo-Christian religions. And we have one good private sector guy here, one good private sector guy, Ken Lay, the CEO of Enron. We got it covered.
Yeah.
But these are the people,
And they weren't.
this is serious, because these are the crazies that were on the committee. These people are nuts. They're nuts. As you look at Agenda 21, you start reading it, you have to pay close attention to the vernacular, and you have to look for the patterns to get a sense for where the problems are. Every one of the initiatives in Agenda 21 will start with something like government at appropriate levels shall. It doesn't say individuals shall. It doesn't say private companies shall, or capitalists shall, or landowners shall. Government at appropriate levels shall. As you go through the hundreds of pages, everywhere you go, it's government shall. It's government-centric. It talks about government in production and consumption. It presumes that government is the source of all solutions. It's very clear. Don't take my word. Go just Google it and go there. Agenda21.com or wherever it is. It uses identity politics. It talks about the role of women, the role of indigenous people, the role of youth with their energy to be actualized and energized. It talks about small farmers. But the one thing they never talk about in Agenda 21 is you never talk about the individual or the capitalist. And why? Because they are unsustainable. Transfer of wealth initiatives and always emphasis on the people rather than individuals. Here's a couple of examples from it. Governments at the appropriate level should select combinations of land uses and production systems. What are the implications of governments to ensure the best possible land use? Does a new highest and best use justify rezoning against the will of landowners? Our Board of Commissioners has taken the position we're not going to rezone any land without the consent of the landowners. Suppose government deems preservation the best use. Suppose 1 year later government determines that building an office park is the best possible use. Well, this is exactly what happened in my county. One day it was office parks, 1 year later it was preservation. Which way is it? The point is anytime you concentrate this much power in the hands of government, there are going to be abuses based on whichever way the political winds blow from year to year. Government will get into the waste business and control it by attempting to change unsustainable patterns of production and consumption. Who's going to determine what's unsustainable level of production and consumption? You? Right. Not me, not the commissioners. It'll be decided by HUD, EPA, the Department of the Environment. One thing I can sure 100%, none of us will make that decision on what's an acceptable level of production and consumption. This is right out of Agenda 21. Here's an example of identity politics. Global action for women towards sustainable and equitable development. Children and youth in sustainable development. Indigenous people. Strengthening the role of workers in their trade unions. You see how they try to use identity politics to separate and ingratiate? Get a sense for that? When you read more details, some of the vernacular here reminds me of the speeches given in the mid-1900s by Hitler and Stalin. Here we go, here's one. Each country should, in consultation with its youth communities, establish a process to promote the dialogue between the youth community and government. Quote unquote. How y'all feel about that? Yeah, my comment is I don't want the government talking to my youth. You know, the proletariat, workers in their trade unions. Let me ask you a question. Did Obama bail out Sudan?
No, he bailed out the union.
He bailed out the UAW. That's exactly right. He bailed out the UAW. So what has sustainability become? It's been hijacked. It's a convenient excuse to attack capitalism, blame America, transfer wealth, impinge on constitutional rights, and install a government-centric socio-economic system. That's what it's become. Like it or not, you look at what's happening around you today. All you have to do is open your eyes and listen and read, and the facts are undeniable. The United States paradigm is that capitalism and private property rights are not sustainable and pose the single greatest threat to the world ecosystem. since I want to get through this. Here's one of my favorite quotes: "The gift that keeps on giving, Mr. Marie Strong." He's from Canada. He chaired the 1992 UN Earth Summit. And as the chairperson, I think you should hear how he summarized it all. This is what he thinks about us. "Current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class involving high meat intake, use of fossil fuel, appliances, home and workplace air conditioning, and suburban housing are not
Sustainable.
Quote unquote. This is
Lower
not
your
God.
standard of living.
How do you spot this movement? The 3 E's I talked about already, so I'm going to skip that. The 3 E's. Now, I want to show you that I'm not crazy. This is the Sustainable Communities Act of 2010 from Maryland, cover page of our Maryland document. What do you see on it? Environment, economy, and social equity. Here it is. I've got more examples too. Slide I have for Congressman. They define social justice as the right and opportunity of all people to benefit equally from the resources afforded by society. All people should benefit equally. I mean, that's it. I mean, I don't. There's another smoking gun for you. I mean, if you're a Marxist, you say, well, this is fair. This is good. This is good. I want to work and keep my paycheck. Social injustice. When does social injustice occur? Well, it occurs when some have prosperity and others do not. Social injustice. When we keep our borders closed. Ah, yes. Closed borders are a source of social injustice. Did you know that? You think it's just a coincidence, of course, that our borders are now open, isn't it? Just a coincidence. Private property is used simply to create wealth for a few. Successful people have homes and lands. Private business ownership rather than every worker being a direct capital owner.
I have a question.
Yes.
How can they justify Al Gore? With his carbon footprint?
It's very simple. He plants trees. And every time he plants a tree, he erases his carbon footprint. He's got a carbon offset. So if you're rich enough to plant 1 million trees, then you still get to fly around in your corporate jet.
Yeah, because the carbon credits on the part of what trade failed.
Yeah, I know that. They weren't planting the trees overseas in other countries. They were never really planting the trees. It was all a scam.
Right.
All right, I'm not going to go through this. This is an example of some of the language in the federal Sustainable Communities Act, Senate Bill 1619. Put the focus on it, things like extremely low income, and they want to make this money available so they want to stop urban sprawl and they want to stop suburban sprawl and smart growth by concentrating growth around our communities, our municipalities. And the way we do that is we're going to have communities that are healthier and better. They're going to be walkable, they're going to be compact, walkable, promote community interaction. They'll be healthier and better balanced with affordable housing available to people of all income levels. Now, what's the key word in that little quote? All. Because all includes zero. Right. Because if you have a $400,000 house and somebody else is living in a 400 square foot apartment, that is a source of social injustice.
Is that a federal bill or a state bill?
Federal. Okay. Here's some of the, a little bit of fun. Some of the top 7 terms of sustainability: location efficient mortgages. Anybody know what that is? Location efficient mortgages. Now the government come up with a way where they're going to tell us how to live. If you live where I want you to live as your commissioner, you'll get this interest rate. If you want to live where you want to live on an acre of land in the county, then you'll pay this interest rate because you will not have a location efficient mortgage. They also call it location efficient, transportation efficient houses, another euphemism. Affordable housing, you know what that is. They stopped using Section 8. They stopped using subsidized. Now it's affordable. It's affordable. A distinction without a difference, I would say. Non-motorized transportation. We're all going to ride our bicycles to work, and I'm going to tell you a funny story about that. It'll make you laugh. I was in a debate when I was running for office, and I've never been in office before, never run before, never involved in politics until about a year ago. And they asked me what I would do to promote non-motorized transportation in Carroll County. Well, Carroll County is an agricultural community. You can go 10 miles and not see 7-Eleven. So I said, well, I think we should do the same thing the private sector does. Before we roll something out at the national level, we would pilot it. So I think our county planning manager and our county sustainability manager should implement a non-motorized transportation pilot. And they should ride their bicycles to work and to public meetings every day for the next year, and then report back to us how it goes. good news in fighting this movement is that they don't stand up to critical analysis. It's easy to show hypocrisy. You know, I believe in servant leadership. I suspect your commissioners believe in servant leadership, which means we do it first. If we're going to take a pay, when our employees take a pay cut, we cut our pay first. That's exactly what we did. We took office, we all cut our pay. First thing we did in office.
Insurance, we help, we contribute, we pay the contribution.
So you pay more for, so you
Yes.
cut your comp. Well,
$100
then
a week.
you have commissioners that are not hypocrites. They are genuine people, principled, who lead by example, and they don't expect us to ride bicycles while they're driving their SUVs to work. Number 4, healthier and better balanced neighborhoods. We talked about. Actually, what does this mean? See, I think you know what it means, but you don't. It could mean that I'm going to eat healthier food and have a narrower waistline, which I'd probably be healthier if I did. It could be racial, but it's not. Healthier and better balance means we shift the voting block from right to left. Because we put enough high-density, low-income housing into the neighborhood, we end up with a larger block of left-wing voters. That's healthier and better balance. And it's not really good to have a million voters tied up in one little city. You only get so many delegates and senators, right? If you can move them out to the rural communities, we can shift all those nasty rural agricultural counties from right to left. That's healthier and better balance. So you think you know what they mean. Actually, you don't. Visioning and consensus building. This is the process by which we all get into a room, we all hold our arms and we go, we envision beautiful street lights and we come up with a consensus and poof, your neighbor's property rights are gone. Social justice and social equity, we talked about that. Stakeholders. I'm rewriting our master plan right now. I have to submit to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They'll have to approve it. But I said I don't want to see the word stakeholder anywhere in that. What's a stakeholder? Well, in America's system of real property laws, there are only really 2 parties to most real property transactions. You have a legal title holder who's on the deed. And you have people that have secured interest, equitable interest in the property. What's a stakeholder? A stakeholder has no legal interest in your property, no equitable interest in your property, but they're going to tell you exactly what to do with your property. This term has become common everywhere in government vernacular. This is a joke. I'm not going to do it. It's funny, but I'm not going to do it. Tying this back to smart growth, when you look at the arguments for smart growth, and you look at them, have any of you guys read your master plans? Okay. When they talk, the document, let's not talk about yours, let's talk about Plan Maryland as an example. When they talk about smart growth, it's always in glowing euphemistic terms. Compact, walkable communities that promote interaction, healthier, better. It's always 100% positive. When they talk about our traditional rural development patterns, it's always 100% negative. The beautiful homes we have on 1-acre lots, manicured lawns with gateways, and that's called sprawl. But the thing is, they ignore the urban nest problems that go along with smart growth. We know as a fact. If you look at communities like Columbia, Maryland, Gaithersburg, Germantown, Maryland, which is a poster child for smart growth, when that developed, it was a beautiful rural town, and now they've got armed guards and grocery stores there. When you have compact development, it's a matter of psychology 101 that you end up with urban nest problems, such as drugs, crimes, increased demand for social and police services that break the budgets of municipalities. Now they would argue that the rural development breaks our budget because we've got to do what? We've got to pave roads and run utilities in further. But they ignore the other problems. There's a yin for every yang, and I'm not saying they're completely wrong, and I'm not saying I'm completely right, but if we're going to do a cost-benefit analysis, let's show the pluses and minuses on both, and let's be intellectually honest about it. Let's not do an indoctrination job, which is what we're doing right now. Okay. How are rights extinguished? I want to jump ahead and skip ahead. How are our rights being extinguished? Well, first off, by politicians and judges that simply ignore the Constitution because they think they're smarter than our founders. You see that. We've got these horrible court cases like Kelo versus New London. By grant coercion. Any of our commissioners here want to tell me what grant coercion is? Grant coercion is when I say to you, you can have your state of Maryland or federal government says you can have some of your tax dollars back, do exactly as we tell you to.
Right.
And you can have your money back.
And that conservation
Unfunded
easements.
mandates. Unfunded mandates.
Conservation easements are just, well, conservation, which question I should ask? Which
The
question?
question is, isn't conservation easements a form of grant coercion?
No, I don't think so. Conservation easement is just an agreement wherein, hopefully voluntary, where somebody says, somebody will grant an easement to keep, let's say, a farm in conservation, usually you pay them for it. And at least it's voluntary. Now, I've got people to the right of me would say it's unconstitutional, but at least it's voluntary.
But it's a reduction of taxes for a constraint on your land or your property, right?
Can we defer that? That's a 10-minute discussion. Yeah, can we defer that and I'll talk to you about it afterwards? It's good. I know a lot about it, but it's a 10-minute discussion. And I'll talk to you about it before I go. By environmental nuisance that slowly tighten around property owners and choke out their property rights. Dan, you want to tell us all about the HB 1107 septic bill from Annapolis?
It's going to cost us a lot of money to implement, and it's going to be very dangerous to our economy, to our farmers, to
Right.
really
Exactly.
It's
Going to cost us, Diane says, Commissioner, your commission says it's going to cost us a lot of money to implement. It's going to hurt our economy. It's going to choke out our farmers' property rights. And what's ironic is the people behind this stuff, they're really not very savvy when it comes to business. They're not savvy when it comes to business. If you take a farmer that has the right to build out 20 houses right now, but he's farming all that land, and you downzone him to maybe 50 acres per house, which means his 20 lots go to maybe 2. Assuming he has a commercial balloon mortgage on that, he has to refinance that balloon in 3 years. What's going to happen when he goes to the bank and wants to refinance? He's not going to appraise. He won't appraise. And when he won't appraise, he's not going to be able to refi his balloon. And what does it do to the farmer? It pushes him into foreclosure. So some of these very programs that are meant to preserve farms will be the first thing that forces our farmers into bankruptcy. And that's simply a fact that they don't want to deal with. Right, Terry? Yep. Okay. I'm going to switch presentations real quickly. I skipped a lot. I said I'm going to show you the presentation I'm going to give to our 2 congressmen tomorrow. And I think you'll be the first ones getting this. This is my practice run. This is short, and I'm going to skip a lot of it. Both myself and Commissioner Robin Frazier will deliver this tomorrow at 1 o'clock. What you're about to see is real. And why are we here? I'm here for one reason. I promised my constituent, I promised my wife. And my wife is very upset about this. She understands it because she hears me talking about it. We've got children, and she says, honey, you got to stop this. And I said, honey, I'm not going to stop fighting until we stop this movement in this country. We're not going to back down. There's too many things happening in our country right now that don't make sense. Let's talk about this. Now remember, this is my presentation to our Congress. EPA is driving our industries overseas where they reopen in places like China, and what happens to pollution levels? They go up, and we lose American jobs. The EPA embracing ethanol, 20 million acres of farmland, while simultaneously blaming farming for pollution, destruction of Chesapeake Bay. Does that make any sense?
And driving food prices.
And driving food prices up. Master plans that overtly are silent. They're overtly silent on property rights. We had a 153-page master plan, and nowhere in that master plan did it make any comments about property rights when I took office. Not a word. Completely silent. Environmental nuisance we talked about, based on unsettled science, distorted statistics, and exaggerated predictions. Talking about global warming. The Plan Maryland document specifically states that one of the premises of the plan is to deal with global warming. Focus on social equity, eclipsing life, liberty, and property. Municipal master plans that have now become municipal manifestos, is what I call them. And people in tears. And I'll tell you, I'm not here for my health. I have a lot of emotion behind this because I'm getting calls every week from people across the country, and the people on the other end of the phone are on the verge of tears. Help us. I can't believe this is happening. They're upset. And I'm not exaggerating. They're on the verge of tears. And I have witnessed people crying who have become victims of this sustainability movement. That's why I'm so fired up about it.